Hey gang, what's going on? And welcome to Talkin Vegas all day with KA. I'm your host KA, and I want to wish everybody a happy 2021. Hope your new year is off to a great start. And on today's episode, we are going to be discussing one of the most iconic places of old Las Vegas, the Dunes Hotel and Casino. But before we get started, make sure to click that like button, hit subscribe, and punch that notification bell so that you can get up-to-date information when we drop new episodes. And also, if you're listening on the pod, click subscribe. We always appreciate it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on the history of the Dunes Las Vegas on Talkin Vegas all day with KA.
Let's go to Vegas, baby. Let's go tonight.
Right now.
Let's go to Vegas. We'll stay up all night. Let's go to Vegas. Let's get away.
So the Dunes Las Vegas originally opened in 1955 along with the Sands and the Desert Inn, which at the time was known as the Three Kings of Las Vegas. Now the Dunes theme and throughout its run was initially the Arabian theme of the resort and casino. As some of you might know, they had the big Sultan out front when it first initially opened. Vegas lore and information that I was able to find says that this hotel and casino, like some of the others back in the old Vegas days, both the mob and money from the Teamsters pension was used to help fund the building of the hotel. It was reported that the money was funded from crime families in Rhode Island and also St. Louis. The initial cost of the casino was around $3.5 million for it to be built, and it would be located on the southwest corner of Flamingo Avenue, which a lot of you know as today the Bellagio. And before opening day, they announced their ambitious plans for 500 more guest rooms, a shopping center, and winter housing on the grounds. And that really kind of led them into some problems because they announced the hotel, and then as they began to open, they over-guesstimated how profitable this place would be. The casino soon found itself forced to close due to not having a really great opening, and the place became what amounted to a motel. It was then sold a year later to Jake Gottlieb, whose Chicago Freight Company had received business loans from the Teamsters pension and fund controlled by corrupt labor boss Jimmy Hoffa. Still struggling, they were able to get some really great guests such as Frank Sinatra and other big-time acts. When it opened back up, it also had Las Vegas's first topless review show, which I found very interesting, Minsky's Follies, which was in 1957, which drew around 16,000, which for that time was huge, which would record the single week's attendance record. And that basically saved the Dunes. Around 1964, the Dunes led the way in lighting up Las Vegas skies. And as you know, they had the 180-foot neon sign shaped like a giant onion. And that's where they really started to bring out the neon wars. Everybody on the strip started going to that neon era. And by 1965, the Dunes had created 800 guest rooms, an 18-hole golf course, and a 24-story hotel tower. As the 70s started to close in 1979, they then again added a new 17-story tower to bring the total number of rooms around 1,300. These rooms were featured as being the most lavish resorts and luxurious in Las Vegas. By the 80s, the aging Dunes struggled to stay open. They had gotten a new owner, Mr. Schlanker, and he was tied to Teamsters and was a one-time lawyer, Jimmy Hoffa. The Teamsters pension he needed to gain control for the Dunes basically wound up in the Federal Investigation Bureau's lap, and they believed Shankard had long-standing direct relationships with the Chicago mob. And basically they forced him in investigations to get rid of it. By 1987, things were starting to go wrong again. The Dunes was bought by a Japanese investor for $155 million. But again, they couldn't really do anything with it, and it was really starting to show their age, and they were not making profit. The firm then went and sold in 1992 for only $72 million to Steve Wynn, who had no intentions of turning it around. Instead, he wanted to blow the thing up and replace it with a much more grandeur hotel. Enter the Bellagio. On October 20th of 1993, the first of the two Dunes towers were imploded on national TV, with one of the pirate ships on Treasure Island firing off a cannon just before the implosion. So it looks like the pirate ship shot off a cannon and blew up the dunes. I thought that was funny. After that, we got what was called the Wind. So that was kind of a short, brief history of the dunes. They had the Oasis Lounge. That was one of the more iconic pictures on the strip. I remember it was my first time going to the dunes way back in the early 90s, right at the end. And yeah, it was outdated. TI and Excalibur and all those other places were already up and running. It was a nice little walk back in time into Vegas. I remember it smelled like smoke. It wasn't really that nice, but it's sort of my thing. When I think of old Las Vegas, you always think of the dunes. And it's even been in movies such as Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, when they had that scene when they were escaping on the roof of the dunes. You know, this will always be a place when you think of Las Vegas, you always will think of the dunes along with the Flamingo, Stardust, the Sands, those kind of places. That's it for today on Talkin Vegas all day. Hey, if you've been to the dunes, leave a comment. Tell me what it was like. I'd love to know. Like I said, I was